Brand new from Ocean Swift Synthesis is Porphrya Hybrid Synthesizer. This is Porphrya. Now, before we get started, there's a couple of things I want to point out. This is only available in the latest Kontakt 8 update. You can't use it in anything prior to that. Now, I do not have the privilege of having Kontakt 8 yet, so I'm using the Kontakt player. What you'll see here, if you have Kontakt, is they have changed a few things. So right now, we do not have the usual header at the top, but the other thing that is not visible is the options for assigning the outputs as well as the MIDI, and more importantly, the presets, or they're called snapshots, in Kontakt. So if you go up to view, there's now the instrument header as a selection. So when we click that, you now get the snapshots or the presets if you have any with your instrument. All right, so onto the controls. Porphrya is a hybrid wavetable / sample synthesizer. So there's two oscillators. One is wavetable, the other is sample. On the wavetable side is over here to the left. We have 3 separate modes: cycle, table, and user. Under each one of these, especially the top 2, you have quite a number of wavetables to utilize. As well as under table, we have quite a number of wavetables to utilize. Same scenario over here with the sample oscillator, which is oscillator B. Under cycle, we have a number of samples, but the modes here change. So we have analog samples, digital samples, organic samples, Phenom, which is one of their previous synthesizers. We have those samples in here, and we have noise samples. Now for both the wavetable as well as the sample oscillator, we do have drag and drop capabilities that allows you to add your own oscillators, which expands this to an infinite number of possibilities to create a brand new sound. Up under the oscillators are their individual controls. So we have the pitch control, which is tuning and fine tuning. The pan left and right. We can modify the phase of the wavetable. We also have phase random, which changes the phase with each note that you hit. The width of the cycle. And then we have enharmonic, which is an additional oscillator on top of the wavetable oscillator that can be added and changed here. If you hold down the control and I believe command on Mac and you click any control, it will reset it to its default position. Under here we have a wave shaper option, a number of different shaper types. You have the modulation for the wave shaper, and then you have the tuning type for the wave shaper. And of course, once you activate one of these, you can then modify the shape of the wave. Below that, we have unison as an option. You can activate that here. The spread and the mix, and then a high pass and low pass filter. Same scenario, different controls. We do share the pitch tuning options, the panning. We can change the start of the sample. Now you only get up to 50% for the sample itself, but you can also change the start position randomly with the probability of it using this knob. And then we have a lo-fi option, which reduces the sample rate. You can turn that off and on here. And again, a simple high pass, low pass filter for that oscillator alone. Below that is a number of LFOs that we can utilize and have switching between various parameters within the program. These are a fixed number of parameters that you can use, but they're there to give you even more customization for your sound. Below the filter and envelope, these are standard things that you would find in most synthesizers. We do have a nice handful of low pass, high pass, and band pass filters, as well as a couple of extras. The envelope is standard amp, filter, modulation based off of ADSR, attack, decay, sustain, release knobs. And you can modify their ranges with the little control in between. Finally, for the main screen, we have the mix knob, you can call it. So we can actually mix or choose one or the other and everything in between. So if you click and hold down the mouse button, pull it to the left, that's oscillator A, all the way to the right is oscillator B, and of course in the middle is a mix of the two. Under the effects section, we have 4 options here. Creative effects, most of these are like distortion or some kind of grunge for your source signal. We have modulation effects that includes things like phasing, flanging, chorus, etc. We have delay, which comes with 3 engines in itself. And then we have 3 separate reverb types in here as well. So those are the 4 effects that you can add to even get more customization without having to spend CPU processes on an external effects processor. Last but not least, under options, we have a number of things to go over. The external modulation section here, this is anything that your keyboard controller has on it. So velocity is standard. The harder you hit a key, the louder something is, right? We have poly aftertouch if your keyboard supports that. We have the modulation wheel, and then finally the pitch bend. So each one of these is altering the input of its respective control. To the right is the play mode. We have poly, which is more than one key, mono, which is one key at a time, and legato, if you're not familiar, it's similar to mono, except that the key is not re-triggered when you change keys. Instead, with legato, the next note that you hit picks up in the same place of the sample from the previous note. Next to that, we have the ability to turn the animations on or off to save some CPU cycles. And then the interpolation down here, draft, high, and best, allows you to save even more CPU cycles if need be. And that, folks, is it for the controls. Let's take a listen at what we used Porphrya for. So here's what we did with Porphrya. All right. I want to point out there are some new tools that are included in Kontakt 8 that you should be aware of that I used in this song. This is the chord tool. So each one of these holds a specific chord within it. It allows you to play the chords with one note at a time. And that's what we used here for this song. Okay, so it would be useful to show you at least a little bit of the user customizable options here. So if we go to user for the wavetable and we go to user for the sample, we now have the ability to drag and drop our own sounds within the plugin to create our own synths from scratch. And I want to actually do this first. We're going to go up to view, instrument, panel, and I am going to reset this. Now I'm looking at this point. Let's try lead. So these are start points, initializations for a specific type of sound. So in this case, it's a lead, right? I'm going to move this over to side A. So it's only side A we're hearing right now. So drag and drop that from the Cubase browser. We now have that as our oscillator. Let's try another one. All right. See here, something a little different. So now we can go in and do all the little fancy stuff that we deem necessary. Now, for those who do sound design, you can already see the potential on what we're doing here. All right. Our filters down here. And we'll go over here to amplitude and turn this down. All right, what are these? These are a little bit more involved. All right, so that's that side. Let's try the other side. Now, what I'm noticing is it does not appear to, when you're using your own samples, it does not appear to loop on the sample side. All right. And of course, how you clear these samples is clicking the X next to the sample's name. So let's try this. We're going to go to filter cut for the LFO one. And of course, each one of these is indeed assignable by default in Kontakt to a MIDI controller. So let's see. If I assign that to my controller, then I can do this. Right? So I'm just turning the knob on my keyboard here. And of course, that can be recorded as automation as well. So the big thing with this is the ability to really create your own instruments, either with the plethora of oscillators that are built into it or by adding your own. If you are interested in getting a copy of Porphrya Hybrid, check the link in the description. Outside of that,